Donald Davis. Thanks to all of you for joining us online for the Sounds of the Mountain Story Festival. Please know that this festival every year is a major fundraiser for Camp Bethel. All the Camp Bethel programs last summer had to be canceled because of COVID, so the camp is having a very hard time existing and getting ready to hopefully run on into this coming year. So I hope that you might consider going online and making a donation to Camp Bethel as part of your appreciation for this online festival. Now, how about a story? When my mother and daddy got married, my mother was a school teacher. She had graduated from college and spent 4 years teaching at Fines Creek School, the same school she had gone to when she was a little girl. But then I came along. They got married, and the next year I was born, and my mother stopped teaching. And she did not go back to teaching through the years when I was little. My little brother was being born. He was little. So through all those years, we never had a babysitter. We didn't even know what a babysitter was because our mama was with us all the time. But then when I got to the second grade and my little brother Joe got to church basement kindergarten, Mama started teaching again. The whole world changed. That year, my daddy taught her to drive. Now she could drive the car. Now she would teach school every day. She had to work on all kinds of things after school to keep her teaching world all held together. And all of a sudden, she needed for us sometimes to have a babysitter. Well, it turned out that just up the road from us, not half a mile up the road, lived a lady named Miss Annie McIntosh. We knew her from church. My daddy had known her for years. And she was enrolled to be our babysitter from time to time. So sometimes Miss Annie would pick us up and take us up to her house. Or sometimes my mama would take us up to her house. And we loved it when she did that. Because see, she was old and she took naps. And when she would take a nap, that's when we could explore the whole house, upstairs, downstairs, attic, basement, everywhere. It was great. But a lot of times she would come to our house. She had this little old gray 39 Chevy, and she would drive the little car down to our house, and then she would come in and she would babysit us, and she would read to us, and she would tell us stories. Now, time went along, and my brother and I got older. And we got to the place where I was maybe 10 or 11, and Joe was 7 or 8 or 8 or 9. We decided we no longer needed a babysitter. But my mother wouldn't listen to us. She kept getting Miss Annie to come take care of us anyway. One day, she and my daddy were going to go somewhere, and she said, tonight, boys, we're going to go over and have supper at the Nesbitt's house, and we're going to stay and play bridge after that. So you boys are going to be here by yourselves, and I've called Miss Annie, and she's going to come, and she's going to be your babysitter. My little brother Joe popped up, and he said, "We do not need her." My mother said, "What did you say?" He said, "We do not need a babysitter." And my mother just looked at him and said, "Why not, mister?" And my brother said, "We are too old to have a babysitter." My mother said, "Really? What makes you think that?" My brother said, "We now have a television. We watch television, so we don't need a babysitter because how can you watch two things at once, television and a babysitter?" Well, his mouth was moving now, and it didn't stop. He kept going. He said, "We do not need that old lady. I don't do what she says unless I want to. And I could outrun her if I tried." And then he looked at my mother and he said, "That old lady is so old that nothing on her works but her mouth. You are wasting your money to call her to be our babysitter." My mother didn't argue. She just smiled and she said, "Well, we'll see." Well, early, about 5 o'clock, my mother fixed our supper, and we ate early because she and my daddy were leaving at 6. And then they got ready to go out to the Nesbitt's house. And here came that little gray car coming down the road. The car came in the driveway. My mother and daddy told us goodbye. They let Miss Annie come in the door, and they got in the car and they left. Now, that's the year we got our first television set. We had this brand new RCA television set, and we got one station, channel 13 in Asheville. You could almost see their broadcast antenna on top of Mount Pisgah from where we lived. Well, we settled down in there. Miss Annie came in. She had a great big old, pocketbook. You could have gone camping in that pocketbook. She settled down in a chair. She dropped that pocketbook beside her. It popped open and a bunch of high mileage little Kleenex floated out of it. She was going to do a little bit of needlework, and she said, "Boys, come over here just a minute. Would you like for me to put down this needlework and read you a story?" And my little brother said, "No, we're too big for stories. We want to watch television." She said, "Okay then, we'll watch television." We knew how to turn it on. She did not. We went over. We turned on the television. We didn't have to pick what we were going to watch because we only got that one channel. And it just happened that night there was a special on ABC about the circus. It was wonderful. We were sitting there watching, and they told all about the circus, and we saw the circus train, and we saw the animals, and we saw how they would put up the big top, and then the circus started happening right on the television show. The trapeze artists came out, and they started swinging through the air and catching one another and going this way and that. And my little brother Joe said, "Oh, I wish I could do that." And then the tight wire people came out, and they were balancing on the wire, going across, and almost falling, but not quite falling. And my brother says, "Oh, I wish I could do that." And then an oversized man came out on an undersized motorcycle, a little tiny motorcycle, and he got inside a huge ball that was made out of wire so you could see through it to the inside. And he rode that little motorcycle around that ball, over and around, all over the place inside. And my brother got so excited, he said, oh, how I wish I could do that." And then the acrobats came out. They came running out into the ring, and they were jumping and turning flips in the air and flips in the air. And then one of them caught another one by his hands under that one's feet and flipped him over his head in the air. And my brother said, "We can do that." And we took all the cushions off of our long, curving, aquamarine color sectional sofa, and we began to line them up in the floor. And we took off our shoes and socks to get good traction. And we went down the hall. And we would run down the hall and hit those pillows with our hands and flip over in the air and land on the other side. And then we watched the acrobats a little bit more to get another idea. Oh, we were having a great time. And Miss Annie was kind of chuckling. She thought it was kind of fun to watch us. Well, we got all wound up. And here came my little brother flying down the hall. He was running full speed, and he jumped and then landed with his hands on the pillow, and the pillow slipped sideways on that slippery hardwood floor. And he fell over the other way, and his feet hit the side of a table, a little old table, but on that table was my mother's brand new S&H green stamp table lamp. And the table hit the wall, and the bulb went out dark, and the lamp hit the floor, kablump. It didn't break. And then Miss Annie stood up, and she said, "Boys, that's enough circus. It's time for you to go to bed." And my little brother looked at her and went, and turned and ran. She didn't chase him. No, she didn't chase him. She just picked up that big pocketbook. She stuffed the Kleenex back in it. She closed the top. And she walked out the door and got in her little gray Chevrolet and left. And my brother and I danced a little jig right there in the living room floor. Oh, we did it, we did it, we did it. We got rid of the babysitter. She is gone, 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 gone. Wahoo, wahoo. We were not smart. Well, we proceeded to turn the house into the circus. We'd turn chairs upside down, run up the back, flip off on the other side. We got on top of the big dining room table, and where that little crack is in the middle where you could open it up and put a leaf in there, we pretended that was the tight wire, and we walked back and forth on the tight wire. Oh, we were balancing a floor lamp between two chairs and using it like a hurdle. We'd jump over it, and then we'd slide under it. And then my brother got hold of the curtains, and he backed up like he was going to swing, swing, swing through the air. And then all of a sudden, there was a knock at the door. Now let me back up and fill you in on a little something. You see, one of the reasons we liked to go to Miss Annie's house was because out beside her house, she had what she called the garage apartment. In the bottom part, that's where that little gray car parked. But the top part looked like a little miniature version of her big house. And from time to time, different people would rent the garage apartment and they would live there for a while. I remember one time this man named Arthur moved in there, and he drove a little 1950 Studebaker. You couldn't tell whether it was coming or going. And on the nose of that Studebaker, he had put a little propeller that would go round, 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 round as he went down the road. He bragged to my daddy about what good gas mileage he got. He said, because it gets going and that little propeller starts spinning, it just pulls the car down the road without it burning any gas. And my mother said that if he got good gas mileage, it was because that Studebaker sucked the fumes off of the liquor he had been drinking. Well, he moved out, and then these two old ladies moved in. Their names were Mrs. Fox and Mrs. Way. I knew where Mrs. Fox got her name because on Sunday mornings she would come out headed for church wearing these dead foxes hanging around her neck. I didn't know where Mrs. Way got her name. But they had this beautiful cream and chocolate brown two-tone 1939 LaSalle automobile. And we just loved to watch them because they had to pull it up and back and up and back and up and back and up and back about 10 times because it was so long to turn it around in that driveway and go back down again. But our favorite person forever and ever and ever, our favorite person who ever lived in that garage apartment was a man named Robert Louis Fitzgerald, who was the assistant police chief in town. Now, he would drive the police car home from work. And if my brother Joe and I were out there, he would let us come play in the police car. He would get us inside and he would show us how to mash this button and it would make the siren go, wow, 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 wow. He would show us how you could turn the radio on and flip a little switch and you could talk in the microphone and it would come out through the grill on the car. He showed us how to turn another little button and the red light would go around on top of the car. It was before blue light days. Just a big red light would go around on top of the cars. He showed us these two spotlights on either side. And my brother and I would get in there. Sometimes when it got dark, he'd let us get in there and we'd play with those spotlights. And we could have sword fights with light beams in the dark. It was great. He was not married, and we loved, he was like a playmate when he came home from being a policeman. He was ready to have some fun and just let down his hair from the day. One day we were there at Miss Annie's house, and an old slobbery dog came staggering and falling into the yard. And she said, come inside, boys, quick. There's a mad dog out there. And she called the police, and she said, Robert Lewis, there's a mad dog in the yard. Come and shoot it. Please come and shoot it. And he came and he came. He pulled up his car into the driveway, and my brother and I were looking out the window. We were so excited because we'd never seen anybody shoot a mad dog. Miss Annie wouldn't let us watch. She made us turn around to go in another room and stay there. We heard a gun go, bam! Bam, bam! I thought, he must not be a very good shot. I said, Miss Annie, why did he shoot 3 times? And she said, because he killed it real good. Well, eventually, Robert Louis Fitzgerald got married, and he moved out of the apartment, and so we missed him from then on. Back to the circus. Right in the middle of our great tearing the house apart and turning it into our own personal circus, there was this knock on the door. And I looked out the window to see who could be there. And my little brother Joe went over and opened the door. In front of our house, there sat a police car with the red light going around on the top. And at our front door, there stood Robert Louis Fitzgerald with his gun out. We said, what do you want? He said, boys, where are your parents? They're not home. Who's staying with you? We're staying with ourselves. But then he had pushed through the door and he was in the house. We said, what do you want? What do you want? He said, well, we got a report that somebody is tearing the Davis's house apart. And I had to cut, oh my goodness, what a mess this place is. Who did this? Has he escaped now or is he still hiding here somewhere? What in the world has happened to this house? We said, well, we were playing circus. He said, where are your mom and daddy? We said, they're at the Nesbitt's house. They won't be back for a while. He said, I got to find them. I got to find them now. We said, what do you got to find them for? He said, so I can lock them up. See, I've got 2 pairs of handcuffs. Here's one for your daddy. Here's one for your mama. I got to go lock them up for leaving children at home by themselves without a babysitter. What do you think about that? My little brother started crying. He said, don't put my mama in jail. Don't put my mama in jail. She doesn't know what to do in jail. I don't know about my daddy. He said, well, do you boys have a better idea? My brother Joe said, I really like it when Miss Annie McIntosh takes care of us. He said, well, let me call her and see if she can come. He used our telephone in the kitchen. By the time he got off the telephone, the house was put back better than it was to start with. As he went out the door, she came back in. She sat down in the chair and said, boys, you want to watch some more television? We said, no, we got tired. Is it okay to go to bed now? She said, if you want to. We said, would you read us a story? She put us to bed and sat between our 2 beds and read us a story. I have no idea what it was about. All I could do was think up in my head about my mother going to jail in handcuffs. Well, finally our parents got home. They paid her and she left. And my mom came in the bedroom to see if we were asleep or awake. We were still awake. And she said, well, boys, how'd you get along with Miss Annie? I let my brother answer the questions. He said, just fine. My mother said, did you watch television? He said, not much. It wasn't any good. We were tired. We asked to go to bed. She read us a story. My mother said, really, what was the story about? My brother said, it was about 2 little boys that almost got in trouble, but not quite. My mama said, that sounds like a good story. I'll have to read that myself someday. Well, after that night, 2 things happened. First of all, that old lady was our babysitter till we graduated from high school. And second, I learned something early on that was very important throughout my whole life. If you're arguing with an old lady. It does not matter if nothing on her works but her mouth. You are going to be the loser. Amen.
We hope the festival will be back home in person next year and need your help in getting the camp ready to reopen as soon as possible for summer camps, guest groups, and special events like the festival. Please click on the link below and make your contribution toward the work, the fun, and the fellowship that find a home at Camp Bethel. Thanks for watching, and thank you for your gift.